Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope this video doesn't turn out too dark. The light blew out. I had a spotlight that blew out. So I have to be honest, I was surprised by this. I dipped my toe into one of the realities that people were experiencing. It's ridiculousness to which they've included themselves. To offer my input or my opinion, like as a guards arbiter. I say it jokingly, but I say it only from this perspective of I have no allegiances in this. This is just my opinion. Now, some of the comments I got back, I have to be honest, slightly stunned me. And not just that, some people contacted me outside of this saying, I was really uncomfortable with this subject, but I like your commentary on it. I'm like, hey, why are you having to contact me in this way? Why are you uncomfortable with the subject matter? All these things. Like, I didn't realize that people were uncomfortable talking about the subject matter. Well, at the very least, some of the opinions that would come up. Everything I said in my Claudia video was perfectly true. There was no disputing. Everything in the video is unimpeachable. So the question becomes, if you're taking issue with something I said in that video, what's wrong with you? Meaning, you're putting an opinion on something based upon something I said. Everything I said is true, particularly within historical context. Somebody even said, I think it was Gardner, he was like, by context, do you mean melanin? No, I actually mean context. I actually mean context. That 400 years, 500 years, 600 years, how many of years has gone before? Now, you're pretending as if those years didn't exist, that the reason why people do the things that they do are just magical. They just happen. Those things just happen. People just do the things that they do for no reason. No, people have reasons for doing the things that they do. If those people aggregate in a group, and that group is based on race, and you're going to call those people crazy for doing so or wrong for doing so, I'm making a point that what's your basis for calling it wrong? Did the previous X amount of years take place or not? Did those people accrue in that particular way for that very specific reason because they were being attacked? Yes or no? That's a true answer, by the way. There's no other answer to that other than yes, those people did aggregate together because they were attacked by race. Now, if you're attacking my identity and I'm aggregating together by identity, that makes sense to me. That makes perfect sense to me. And not just makes sense to me. It is historically proven true because that's what took place. That's what took place. So I'm just making this very particular point. If you're taking issue with that, that's with you. That's not with the facts themselves. The facts themselves hold true. African Americans have a very complex history in this country. Those people were attacked based on identity. Their color was used as a separating factor in that society so much so that laws called Black codes, Jim Crow laws, were put into effect based on the basis of color. Is that true or not? Is that true or not? If that's a fact, then let's move on to the next fact or the plank in the argument. Time goes on. Those people still accrue in ways based upon things that they were attacked. Did the 60s happen or not? How far away are the 60s? The point I'm making to you is it is not crazy for people to aggregate in certain ways, particularly on the basis of the things that are being attacked. In this particular country, those things tend to revolve around identity. Now, you can be above it all. I'm above identity. I'm above identity. I don't see race. I don't see race. I don't see race so much so as I don't even see the last 1,000 years. That's where I'm at. That's the headspace that I'm existing in. The rest of the world is not with you. Good job on that headspace. The rest of the world is not with you. Somebody else, I think it was Pet Hacker, he was like, yes, he's made some missteps. No, I just disagree with you. There's a difference in those things. All perspectives are relative. That's true. All perspectives can be criticized based upon some other relative perspective. That's also true. But it doesn't make you right. That's my point. It's not a misstep. Misstep assumes that your position was right. I don't take your position as being right. But certainly if I said something that you disagreed with, then you just disagreed with it. Doesn't mean you're right. That's the point I'm getting at. Those aren't missteps. Those are things you disagree with. Those are very different things. I'm going to go some of these questions or some of these comments because some of them are absolutely fascinating. And I have to be honest, I don't understand why people are in this space. Is it that they need to be in the group that African Americans want to accrue? Is it that they just disbelieve that the last 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years took place? Is that what it is? Is that what we're dealing with? People who don't believe in history. You understand that anything that happens in the past, that your present moment contains everything that happened in the past. Everything. History does take place. The reason your reality is the way it is right now is because of the history that came before it. Pretending it doesn't exist is kind of ridiculous. I'm sorry. Now, one or two things took place. Claudia goes into a room that says African Americans. Essentially, you have a group of African Americans who want to talk to other African Americans. She's aghast by this. How dare these black people want to talk to each other? I mean, I'm being somewhat flippant and I'm being hyperbolic, but I'm just trying to make this point of you had a group of people who wanted to accrue together, and you took issue with those people who wanted to accrue together. You go into that group, and let's say you didn't take issue with it. Let's say you went to the group for whatever reason you wanted to be in that group. They let you into the group. Nobody expelled you from the group. Nobody said you couldn't be here. Nobody said, Claudia, get out. You were there. So that's the first plank. The second plank is they asked you not to videotape, and you threw a hissy fit. That's what it sounds like. Now, if you want to bring up this thing of, well, why is this black group here together and all this other stuff, and then you're going to add in, they didn't let me videotape. I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt and trying to say, no, she wasn't just throwing a hissy fit because a group asked her not to videotape. So if it was an Asian group, a women's group, or whatever group, are you telling me that all of these other groups are supposed to disband because you are at a point where you don't see people beyond, you're just beyond all of these things, you just see other beings? Come on, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. A woman threw a hissy fit. That's what it boils down to, a woman threw a hissy fit. Now, I'm going to give Claudia a benefit of the doubt and say that this hissy fit does go beyond this thing of, from her perspective, she wants to be in this place where these things like color and skin and gender don't exist. There are no Asians. There are no Hispanics. There are no blacks. They're just beautiful souls. All right, fair enough. You can do that. You can be there, but just understand that the world is not there with you. There are a lot of things that I wish the world would be, but I can't pretend that this is not the world I'm dealing with. That's my point. Let's go through some of the comments because some of these are awesome. So let me see. Luca Clemente. There's nothing unusual about minorities and marginalized groups claiming private spaces to discuss grievances, strategize solutions, and express solidarity. Yes, that sounds perfectly sensible to me. Now, nothing unusual. That depends upon the context of the society that you're in. So in some societies, yes, it may be unusual. In others, it may be perfectly normal. Certainly in our society, it's perfectly normal. All groups organized in some way. Now, I've made this point before that the base group that you're talking about, when you're talking about having a base meeting, just one individual meeting, that group, by other demographics, is considered the white group. You, as a white person, may not see it that way. The minorities do. This is the thing of perspectives. Are you telling me that your perspective carries sway over everything else? I'm telling you it doesn't. Now, you can go with this idea of, yes, I'm beyond it all. I'm beyond it all. And so from that perspective, yes, it looks a little weird for groups to organize together. But do you understand how ridiculous that perspective is? That's the only thing I'm saying. If you're literally at the point where you've gone so far beyond society that you don't realize that you actually have a society that's structured and configured in a particular way, you're a little ridiculous. I'm sorry. And I'm not meaning that in a harsh or bad way or anything else. But does history exist or not? And does our present reality essentially contain our history? I would say yes, it does. Meaning you can take one step after the next to see what took place in our history to see how we got us to this point. You have a group. That group says, we want to bring in other African Americans. We want to have a conversation among us. I'm missing your issue. What's wrong? Babe. Could you check it for me, make sure the audio is coming out okay? That's my wife. She's checking, make sure the audio is coming out okay. I mean, let's go through some of the things. I'm a middle-aged white guy that makes perfect sense to me. Claudia's white space-only analogy doesn't make sense in 2017. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry, it doesn't. The main space, that's the white space. That's the white space, whether you realize it or not. And I know this is a perspective thing. It's like, what does the apple look like from the human perspective, and what does a human look like from an apple's perspective? Yes, I know it looks a little weird in that sense, but yes, from the perspective of a minority in that sense, where you're in a society of a dominant majority, meaning what, 60% of the people in this country, 60, 70% are white? If that's true, then you can kind of see how that doesn't look like ours. Meaning, yes, we may want our own space to collaborate. I don't think it would be weird for Asians or Koreans or anybody else. I think all these spaces have their own, all these groups have their own spaces. It's kind of ridiculous. She's making a hissy fit out of something that's perfectly normal in our society, in our culture. And she's saying, we should be beyond this. And this is anti-racism, or this is reverse racism, or something ridiculous. They just actually not videotape. I'm sorry, I can't. There's nothing else I can add to that. There's nothing else I can add to it. You may think I'm totally downplaying or joking it. And to some degree, I kind of am, because I do think this is kind of ridiculous. The things that people go through every day in regards to how society is structured in a particular way, the headwind they face, I feel like this trivializes it with the white woman who goes into a black group and wants to videotape. Whatever the reason, they said they didn't want her to videotape. It's whatever their reason is. I don't care what their reason is. Yeah, I don't care what their reason is. Please don't videotape in here, because we don't want you to videotape in here. This is reverse discrimination. I'm being discriminated against as a white woman. Come on, this is stupid. I'm sorry, this is stupid. I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt in this very specific context. Our society should be beyond this. And I'm aggravated as shit that our society is not. Right there, that's righteous anger. That's honest. That's honest. I understand that perspective. I encounter that perspective every day where I'm like, God damn it, I wish our society was past this. I get that. That I get. Honest to God, I get. And it's very possible that the fact she couldn't record sparked that. Fair enough. There's a black group. Why is there a black group here in the Antiwar conference? We're supposed to be together. All of us are supposed to be united. Why is that group here? I'm going to that group. I go to that group. They allow me in. They allow me in. They're being opening to me, even though they call it a black group. I sit in this group. I hear whatever they have to say, and I want to videotape, and they tell me no. And I feel discriminated against as a white woman. And I'm going to go to my video, and I'm going to go to my platform, and I'm going to be angry about it. And I want to piss a fit about it. And now people are going to jump into reality with me. And they're going to make determinations on whether or not I was right or whether I was wrong. Okay. And look, you can have that. That drama is perfectly okay. But come on, just admit, this is kind of ridiculous. And in regards to the dramas that go on a daily basis in regards to discrimination, this is pretty low on that list. I'm sorry, this is pretty low on that list. I've met whites who would say, I had a difficult upbringing. Fair enough. You're a person. You're a person. Any upbringing that you have that you believe that's somewhat rough, yeah, to you it's going to be rough. It is what it is. I don't deprive anybody of that. Her giving her heritage and everything else, again, fair enough, is what it is. But does giving her heritage get across the idea of cultural relevance? And maybe I'm saying this wrong, but it's like, did African Americans have a complex history in this country or not? Did this country fracture in a sense of identity, not class, but identity? Were African Americans kept as slaves? Were our looks, our image, our visage, were those things vilified? Was it codified in law in a way that adversely affects us? Now, I'm only saying this in a sense of saying the thing that was attacked, if you were playing chess, the very specific thing that was being attacked was identity. That's what I'm getting at. The thing that was being attacked was the thing that needed to be protected. Identity. Does it make sense, to any degree of making sense, for groups to conform around the things that are being attacked? Meaning, if you're attacking me by my identity, I'm going to gather strength and organize around identity. Is that a factual thing? Is that what took place? Is that the reality of the situation which we're presented? I'm trying to make this very clear point, and I may be repeating myself, that if that's true, if all of the things that I just said are true, meaning there is a constructual basis or there's a historical basis to the way people organize themselves, how our society organizes itself, how the people and the individual constituents of a society organizes itself. If that's true among African Americans, that was the way we organize ourselves, and that has persisted through society, and not just us, all groups, what is their issue? Why is this becoming a factor when it's something that's as normal can be? And if you want to say, well, we don't like the fact that it's normal, fair enough, but let's not pretend that it's not normal. Let's not pretend that it's not normal. And that could have been any group. That could have been Asian, Hispanic, that could have been any particular group. It just so happened to be an African American group. There are a lot of blacks in Richmond. That's the benefit of the doubt that I'm giving her. Otherwise, it's just the woman complaining because she couldn't videotape. Let's keep going. Thanks for explaining this. Yeah. I'm trying to find some ones that completely dislike what I'm saying. Like, I gotta be honest. The comments that say, well, yeah, you make sense. Of course, these are the things that happen. These are the things that took place in our society. This is why our society is this way. They asked her to not videotape. That seems to be so sensible to me. Like, that seems to be the most sensible thing in the world to me. And I'm trying to give her this amazing benefit of the doubt, whether these people who dislike what I'm saying believes it or not. Because I'm trying to make this point of, she's this uber awesome person who's beyond this stuff, and she's sick of the stuff being the way it is. I understand that position. I get it. I understand the position. What has been now 150 years plus since slavery? When you continuously oppress or repress, the control imposed upon any race is wrong, whether you get paid for starving wage or not. It's still slavery. But now it's not just minorities anymore. It's anybody who's poor. Yeah, okay, I agree. No, I agree. I've just said before, a person's decision space is determined by how much cash they have. The biggest trick in the world has been race. The issue is class, not race. The issue is class, not race. It's funny to me, whether people realize it or not, the people who've been really hurt and hoodwinked in this is whites. It's whites. I know that sounds crazy. And as an African American, you might be like, whoa, what the fuck are you talking about? You've lived in a country where massive amounts of wealth has been accrued. That wealth, for the most part, was funneled upward. Now, the case that I make that they've been hoodwinked is that the issue in this society has been race. It's not. It's been class. It's been class. Race has been this kind of thing that you focus on, but ultimately class has been the thing that you should have been looking at. They've had a hand in your pocket while you had your hand on that whip. And you're in a situation where it's almost like, well, I'm not the bottom rung of the society, even though you're the bottom rung of that society. That's the point I'm making to you. It's like, yes, African Americans, we've had it rough in this particular society. But the issue is class, not race. And it's almost like race has been this mirage of sorts in order to get others to kind of give up these things of liberty and even cash, like the what you would allow your society to get to as a bottom rung in that particular society. I thought that was a negative one. My bad. All right, so it seems like, all right, here's one. Here's a good one. Tribalism is a pretty hard thing to eradicate in our species. It's hardwired. It would take evolution. It would take time. That's true. I agree. That's perfectly true. That's Jude 1. Because look, it's what is any. Put it this way. I always think that social forces have a certain It's almost like a physical property of these social forces. Momentum. Momentum. Something goes at a particular speed at a certain point, friction acts upon that particular thing, that thing starts to slow down, that thing stops. That thing may roll back down the hill. You have something in a society that coalesced around a very specific thing, meaning identity, all of us. And in coalescing around identity, you have this push at that particular thing of trying to unravel that. You're not unraveling that shit overnight, and pretending it doesn't exist doesn't help you. Okay, so most of these are like, I agree with you. Here we are. Oh, God, no. Here we are. Here we are. I agree with a lot of points, but your tone is shitty. You mock her. Yes, I do mock her. Declare she has no understanding of context. To be frank, it makes me wonder how well you're going to be able to cope with increased public attention and praise. It can be intoxicating. I've seen other people go down this road. Be careful. Dude, I'm on YouTube. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I'm on YouTube. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see how you're going to be able to cope with increased public attention and praise. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm mocking her because this is kind of ridiculous. She's declaring that this is some level of anti-racism or reverse racism or something like that. They just actually not to videotape. I'm sorry, that's not. Look, put it this way. You can, if you're going to give her her perspective, if you're going to say, well, wait a minute, Claudia had a particular perspective, and that perspective is valid. I don't think all perspectives are valid, but okay, you can say that. But you also have to give the same credit to the people who were there, meaning those people who they allowed Claudia in that particular room and who asked her not to videotape. Are you telling me that their perspective is not valid in this situation? What makes Claudia's perspective more valid than theirs? The point I'm getting at is if you're trying to say that all perspectives are equal, I'm saying all perspectives are not. I'm saying that there are times where you're looking at a particular thing and you're making a decision on whether or not this particular person has a better perspective of it than the other person. They asked her not to videotape. If I'm being very honest, I suspect she didn't like the fact that they had a meeting that said for blacks. It had nothing to do with racism. It had everything to do with her believing that the world shouldn't be that way. That ultimately this group should be for everybody. All of us should be in this kumbaya moment and we shouldn't have these things. She was coming from a good place. It just took her in a bad spot. If you're going to have any level of context, and no, not bad context, I don't mean melanin, I mean actual context. This world is constructed a particular way. You can be beyond it, but you're still functioning in the framework of the world the way it is. She threw a hissy fit because they didn't let her videotape. So yes, I'm being somewhat condescending. It has nothing to do with praise, that's just who I am. There's a difference in those things. Let's see. Yeah, nobody agrees with him on this one. All right. Okay, I don't know where this guy's going. Yeah, see, I thought there were more negatives than this. There aren't. I think Garnome was, oh, there we are. Ah, Pat Hacker also agreed with Garnome. You mean like a melanin? No, I don't. I have no clue where that comes from. I have no clue where that comes from. Are you telling me that you're so jaded that you can't understand the perspective? A, that doesn't address anything I said in my video. Zero. B, I would wager that you can't contest anything I said in my video because everything in my video was perfectly true. You just don't like the results of that. That has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with you. Let's see. Also, if you're going to call out a video, you need the link. No, that's true. I do need to put up a link. I did this on my cell phone. My cell phone is, I wasn't at my computer when I approved the video. So you're right. Nor do I have groups like Black Caucus. However, if she was singled out and prevented from filming based on her race, then that's wrong. But is that what happened? Is that what happened? Honestly, you honestly believe that the group said you're white, so you can't videotape here? Is that what you honestly believe took place? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't know a Noah like that. I have a hard time believing it. I would contact a Noah and ask her, is that what took place? I don't believe it. It just seemed bizarre to me for them to say, you're white. No, you can't videotape here because you're white. Is that what you honestly believe went down? Now, because understand, if that's what you believe went down, that takes a certain perspective of the individual who's at that particular group who's telling her to do that. That's what you're saying. That somebody at the group, an African-American was at the group, an anti-war group, a lefty said, you're white, so you can't videotape here. Get the fuck out of here. And I'm being hyperbolic with the get the fuck out of here. But is that what you honestly believe took place? I don't believe it. I contacted Noah. I will contact Noah on this. I am highly skeptical that took place. That doesn't even sound right. I'm sorry. That doesn't sound right. Yeah, that sounds ridiculous to me. I'm sorry. It does. If I'm wrong on this, I apologize, but that sounds ridiculous. I don't think anybody got to the point of saying, no, you can't videotape because you're white. They may have told her not to videotape for some other reason, but I have this feeling of, even if they said don't videotape because you're white, I gotta be honest, that just sounds weird to me. It just sounds weird to me. I don't have a perspective of a person in that group saying that particular thing. As long as you're fine with whites only progressive group not allowing whites in attendance to films, this dismissal is justified. Do you honestly believe, again, this is a perspective thing. I'm going to take your perspective into account. I am. I absolutely am. But are you telling me you can't take the other perspective into account? This idea that from a minority's perspective, this annoys the shit out of me sometimes about this country, whether it's whites or otherwise. I don't give a shit about the race. This particular feature I dislike. Get into other people's headspace. Get in their headspace. Many of these comments who, are complaining at me about it are not in anybody else's headspace but their own. They have certain beliefs of the world. Those beliefs are wrong. People may believe different things based upon the perspective that those people are. There's a very specific reason why I'm trying to give the perspective of Claudia. There's a very particular reason. You think I'm doing that just perfunctory? No, I'm doing that for a very specific reason. I'm trying to give her the best benefit of the doubt. I don't want to have this belief that she's just somebody complaining about not being able to videotape. So I'm trying to give her a higher, an angelic view of the world in a sense. Do the same for the individuals to which you're so quick to criticize. Now, if you're talking about why would a minority, explain that to me. I don't know how to pronounce your name, dude, so I'm sorry. Or Coast Green Man. Perspective of a minority. If you've been in a country where the majority of the people in that country, you're 13% of the country. 13%. Whites are, 60-something percent. You're marginalized by your race for the entire time you've been in this country. The entire time. Literally, the entire time. Now, you would have things for whites only. You would have events that had whites only. You had all those things. You made the segregation of the society by race. We didn't do that. That wasn't our doing. Now, in making and segregating the society by race like that, any event that takes place from the perspective of a minority, that's the white event. That event, that anti-war conference, that was a white event. From the perspective of a minority. Yes, you had other groups there and everything else. We were visitors to your event. I know that's hard to realize, but that's true. When you have offshoot groups, Korean, Hispanic, Asian, Chinese, Jap, whatever the demographic, women, men, whatever subgroup you want to divide yourself into. You understand that those things are not, it's like if you look at the original group or the base group itself as the main group, anything else is just an offshoot of the group. You guys are the base group. This country, for the most part, is an overwhelming majority white. Now, yes, it may be a minority majority soon, but for right now, you guys are an overwhelming majority of the country. The group itself is going to be an overwhelming majority of whites in normal situations, meaning the groups that are visiting you, we're just there to visit. Yes, we're part of it, but no, we don't live in a colorless society. Meaning from the perspective of the minority, that's the white group. You don't have to create another group called the power group or the white group or whatever else. That is the white group. This is a perspective thing. This is as I observe this from this particular location, in this particular society, in this particular body, and this particular gender, in this particular race. Yeah, that's the reality of the situation, whether you believe it or not. I see these comments and I'm like, dude, you have no fucking context. You're looking at this purely from the perspective of a white male. No, you don't see yourself as the base group because you're not the base group. All perspectives are relative to one another. From my relative perspective, that is the white group. That's what I'm getting at. Whoever, whether it was Noah or anybody else who was starting a black group, they're not wrong for it. The society itself is constructed in a way that finds that to be perfectly okay. At some point, that will be abnormal. At some point, that will be just a weird fucking thing. Why are those people trying to segregate themselves in that way? Why are they doing that? I see you when I interact with any particular person. I just see that person as a person. That person is someone as a soul. As a male, I may say, wow, that woman is attractive. Okay, but ultimately, that person is a soul to me. Not everybody does that. And let's put this shit in context now. I've done videos where, as I'm doing a video, somebody would say, wow, this guy's criticizing this particular person. Now, I'm looking at the video like, why are they shocked that I'm criticized? Oh, right, because they think, for the most part, I will be sticking with my own, and I wouldn't necessarily take a vantage point separate from my own, whether that's race or whether that's party. I don't have a party. And in regards to race, I care less about race and more about what's honest and what's true. Now, I'm saying that to say that whether you realize it or not, identity is hardwired in people in this country. Now, you may not see it that way. I guarantee you a lot of other people do. I guarantee a lot of other people do. And I've interacted with people. I've commented with people back and forth. I've had conversations with people. I've seen comments with people where it's enough, where I'm like, okay, these people are in a particular reality. And in being in that particular reality, I don't exist there. So I'm making this point that, yes, I understand that you see things a particular way. What do the other people who are not you, who don't look like you, who don't experience society in the way that you do, how do those people perceive those things? Is it possible that they perceive it differently? And it is also possible that their perception is not wrong. You can have situations where both people are right. Let's see. Final point. If you haven't heard the other points, this garden home again. If you want to discuss context, you can't compare an NAACP and Black Caucus without allowing someone to film at a public conference. I don't get it. I have to be honest, I don't quite understand that one. You can't discuss NAACP. Yeah, I don't quite get that one. Yeah, I don't quite get that one. I shouldn't do that one. Here's one. This is Tim Loons. Jamal, first of all, I am a subscriber of your channel and truly appreciate a lot of your work, but you had to know there was a but coming. Your whole argument was flawed and starting by making the assumption that the videographer was assigned to that job by the group. What? That makes your job discrediting Claudia easy, but totally without merit. I think you're the one missing the point. The point being that soon the schism will divide would not be along racial differences, but along economic ones. And have nots. I understand that's why Black Lives Matter and all these other groups, but soon, I believe, as a matter of context. Okay, I didn't assume that. If you look at the video, I think I made a point of saying, how do you know that that person wasn't there to do that? I'm saying, I don't know. But I would argue that neither did Claudia. Neither did Claudia. Do you know that that particular person wasn't there videotaping for the group? If you do, how do you know that? I'm making this point that me saying, well, and I'll look at the video again to make sure, but I could have swore that I said, how do you know that the person wasn't there for the group itself, that they want to have a live stream? On the second point, all right, now to be fair, nothing in this contradicts anything I said in that video. Nothing. Zero in this. You're being critical of me without telling me why you're being critical of me. That's all right, fair enough, fair enough. Look, I agree. It is going to be economic, but most of my videos make that point, that the biggest wool pulled over people's eyes is race. The issue is class. The issue is class. I've never deviated from that. I've never deviated. I'm just saying that's not now. And even you yourself say, that at some point, if at some point means it's not now. At some point means it's not now. All right, let's go to the other ones, to the current comments. I'm curious on what these are going to be. I haven't had a chance to. I kind of would love my wife to help me with this, but she's not going to help me with this. we've had issues over the videos. God damn it! Come on, come on, come on. All right. If you have any questions or comments, make them. I'm paying attention at this point. So let's see how this goes. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. It's funny. It's always like we're in a position of trying to get something done. It always takes forever to do it. It always takes forever to do it. All right. Okay. Here we are. Gardenome says, my full posts. If you want to discuss context, you can't compare NAACP and Black Caucus with allowing someone to film at a public conference. Now, the point I'm trying to make with that is you have these groups that, for the most part, aggregated for a reason. They aggregated together for a reason. Like, it's not like these groups just magically appeared. There was a reason for these groups. These groups accrued based upon the way society was arranged. Now, you're trying to say that them telling her not to film, Gard, why do you think they told her not to film? Why do you think they told her not to film? I don't have this answer. I'm just amazed that you, I mean, definitely put that in so I can see the answer. Because there could have been a reason, which is kind of the point I made in my video. If you said I only wanted one stream, and I don't know if this is true, I'm going to contact Noah, but if you said you only wanted one stream, how is it reverse racism or anything else? They just told her not to videotape. I'm sorry, man. I am dipping my toe in this minutia because I find it to be minutia. I find there to be much larger and heavier issues that are going to weigh on people. I find it slightly interesting in regards to the perspectives because I can kind of see the realities that people are existing in when they're having these conversations. So, fair enough. Oh man, I just don't see it. I just don't see. Yeah, I agree with Gardner on this. This is the tempest in the teapot. Look, I've always made this case of you can play around in minutia, but don't get carried away by the stuff. Yes, I'm reading the chat. Yes, Bob TV is right. They asked her not to film because it was a Black-only event. Look, if somebody went to her and said, "Hey, we don't want you to film because you're white," that would be a little weird. I'm just saying that would be a little weird. Yeah. I'll check with the Noah. I'll check with the Noah. I'll contact the Noah. Yeah, I've never seen him do that either. Yeah, I agree. Like, I have to be honest. I don't know if this is bias or what, but I still kind of had this feeling of if I went into a group, let's say it was an Asian group, Japanese group, and I go in and they say, "Hey, could you please don't film?" And I see somebody else filming. Am I going to flip out over that? No, I'm not. I'm just not. It just seems like a weird thing to flip out over to me. Even if the guy said, "Oh, and I can't see anybody saying this, but this is a Japanese only event. We don't want anybody else filming here." Am I going to flip out over that? Probably not. I have to be honest, probably not. No, here's the question. Here's the thing. Is it possible? To any degree that's possible. What is the situation if somebody gets up and says, "Look, this is a Black only event. We don't want you videotaping here." I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing that. That's the only thing with that. I just have a hard time seeing it. She was allowed in because the rule was silly. Well, they let her in the event. I mean, it was not like she wasn't there. I think they just asked her not to videotape. I don't know who the most racist people are. So it's possible. It's possible. Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, the woman, I talked to the woman. Oh, he says, is it possible they were afraid someone could say something stupid and the whole group could be labeled a particular way and may not know Claudia or her work? Yeah, that's possible. We don't know who you are. We don't want you videotaping us. I don't see why that's crazy. Now, but the way they're framing it though is, we don't want you to do this because you're white. Ugh. Like that's. I'm trying to think to myself though, is that a horrible thing? Like, is that if you had a group that was most African Americans, for whatever reason, she wanted to bring people who are like us together. Not negative in any way. That's not even unnatural in any way. Claudia comes in, she goes. For whatever reason, she goes. And they say, oh man, we don't want you to videotape in our group. Now, does somebody say, we don't want you to do it because you're white? What do they mean by we don't want to do it because you're white? Is it purely a, you're a white woman, we don't like white people, so we don't want you to record? I don't know, man. I'll have to check. Yeah, I don't see the flipping out part either. This was Chip on Mike 74. Yeah, I don't see that. I don't get the flipping out part. That's the part that threw me for a loop. And that's kind of the part where I was like, I was joking around it. It just seems like, think of all the things in the world that could go wrong in our life, all the bad stuff. And think of all the stuff that people endure for the basis of race and color. I'd argue that that guy got shot recently on the basis of his color. If there was a white person in the car, that person would not have gotten shot. That's my contention. I mean, to call it, to say, well, this is a form of discrimination, it's like, calm down. They just said don't videotape. That's all. I mean, it's somewhat of a slap in the face. That's all. White people do this shit all the time. We don't want you to be here because you're black. This, oh man, this racism, reverse racism stuff. Can we just be people? I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds insane. Can we just be people? Treat me like a person. Let's go from there. Here's the catch. You still have to admit that the history took place. Like I was talking to my girlfriend, my wife about this. Oh, what's that girlfriend? I was talking to my wife about this. I'm sorry, we just got married. And she said, I was like, Claudia was flipping out about this. And I said, people were a little freaked out to talk about it. I said, this makes a perfect topic for me because I don't get freaked out about this stuff. I love these conversations. And she said, white people are afraid to talk about race. Now, I think my wife is right about this. I think part of this is it runs in two streams. And I could be wrong. This is my perspective. One is being disingenuous or not being honest about how this country was acquired and what went into building this country, or being overly so the other way. Like, not necessarily taking this practical, okay, this is what we did to take this country, and this is what took place in order to build this country. And 60 some odd years ago, we kind of got to the point of saying, okay, you guys maybe are people. We expect you to be further up now. Like, having an honest conversation about this stuff. I used to watch those videos in the 60s. That stuff used to be brutal conversations. There was no way. There's no context to have that conversation or those type of conversations in real life now. People would freak the fuck out over getting anywhere near the way they used to talk to each other about that stuff. But again, it was present. It was in your face. You were having riots. People were burning shit down. All of these things. I part of me dislike these conversations because I think the issue is class. And I think when people have these deep conversations about race, it somewhat takes our eye off the ball. But you still have to admit reality exists. Like history, how we are now, takes all this stuff into the present. Yeah, I've read economics. I don't know. I have to answer Noah. I don't know her, so maybe she'll respond, maybe she won't. But I know she's not watching. She's not watching. She's not watching, Cardo. She's not watching. Well, they're scared about race because people like to throw around racism. If you're having a conversation of saying, I want to strengthen the border, you're immediately labeled racist. Now, I may disagree with you about the whole strengthening the border thing, but I don't necessarily jump to the idea that you're being a racist. I pretend that there aren't some people who say we want to strengthen the border and they're being racist. My point is, you have both. Both things are true. Like, it's not a situation where it's one or the other, it's both. The problem is most things are both. Most things are both. So you get this murky, gray, complex situation that people don't necessarily want to talk about honestly because they feel a particular way about it. Yeah. I used to watch these conversations with Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or these guys having arguments, conversations with each other. These guys on talk shows or whatnot. These guys in the media, in the press, having these conversations. James Baldwin, love James Baldwin. Some of these conversations were brutal conversations. Like, you're having the conversations where somebody's calling you a Negro. Now, that's in and of itself from our context. It's hard to kind of deal with that. And it's kind of hard to understand that these guys were in enemy territory when they were having this conversation. And yet they had the conversation nonetheless. It's fucking amazing. Yeah, I have to be honest. I don't know Noah in that way. What I know of her, I just have a hard time believing that they said, no, you can't do this because you're white. That's all. That perspective blows my mind, if that's what was said. Not necessarily saying the perspective was wrong, just saying I somewhat disagree with that perspective. I mean, I guess I can think of many other reasons why I don't want somebody to record something. Their race has nothing to do with it. I don't know what their race has to do with it. Like, it's like your white skin is somehow going to do something. What is the white skin going to do? I can just think of reasons from that. I don't want you doing this because you may fuck us over. I don't want you to doing this because you may do X. I don't want you to doing this because of whatever. I can think of reasons. Weird and strange to me. It to be a reason why they wouldn't want to record. I had a conversation with a woman, Fight for 15, and she didn't let me record her. She didn't let me videotape her. She was like, I'm not going to let you videotape me. We've had people do the videotape thing and fuck us over later on after they did the videotape. So she just that was off the books for the most part. The conversation I had with her had just been taped. So. Cardinal, how do you know? That's what I'm saying. How do you know that denying her film was petty? What were the reasons that they told her not to do it? I don't know what I talked to Debbie at the Antiwar conference. And I have to be honest, Claudia seems cool as hell to me. She just comes across as a hippie. This is kind of why I'm giving her this perspective of just being above it all. I don't think this was malicious. I don't even think it was intentionally bad. I don't even think she was coming from a bad place. Literally. So if I'm joking her on this, it's because I joke anybody when I'm having these things. You guys may not necessarily like me joking somebody you like, but if you've noticed, this is just my personality. This is not anything changing or anything adjusting. I tend to be somewhat braggadocious, and I do tend to joke people when I think they're being somewhat ridiculous. I think she's being somewhat ridiculous here. I'm sorry. And I'm saying this to someone who likes her. Love Debbie to death. Love Debbie to death. My wife when we were at the anti-war conference, she was like, "Are you going to be a fanboy because Debbie's here?" I said, "A little bit, maybe." So yeah, I put no bad feelings on either party. I honestly believe she's looking at it from that perspective of, I am sick of things being this way. I want us to be beyond this. I honestly think that's her perspective. That is an amazing and worthy perspective. The reason why I took the argument of, but we're not there, and the reason why I was making this argument of the NAACP and why these things kind of coalesced in this way, is because we're just trying to make this very specific point that the country is not there. It's not there. It's just not there with you. I would love to be there with you. I would love to be hand in hand and walking in the sun, singing "This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius." I just don't think we're there. I just don't think we're there. Hell, say anti-black things. Yes, that's true. Yeah, and that's what I don't like. She's Anastasia Renat. I know it should be aggressive. Claudia called the UNAC organizers racist. They weren't being racist. This is kind of my point of saying she was being ridiculous. I gotta be, and this is, if there's any level of joking or any level of beating up on a perspective, that's where that comes from. Honestly, do you honestly believe? Honestly, be very, very honest. Do you honestly believe that them asking her not to videotape, even if they said, "You're a white woman and your white skin is going to do something to this videotape, so no, goddamn it, we don't want you videotaping in that particular place," even if they said that, do you honestly believe that that in any way matches? God damn it, I feel like I have to defend the word again. It's like, whether it's this Bill Maher thing or this shit, any and everything that happens, it's not racist. Whether that's a white person doing it, whether it's a black person doing it, whether that's any demographic doing it. Sometimes people are just dicks. Now, I don't necessarily know the reason why they asked her not to film. I have no clue the reason they asked her not to film. But to act like they were being racist against you, when you think of some of the racist shit that takes place in this particular country, does this really find your way up to the list? Let's say you didn't think it was racist. Where on the list does this fall? I'm just saying, this is somewhat ridiculous. I'm sorry. Kelly Lane, I think there's confusion between the word racist and bigoted. Words are slippery in general. Words are slippery in general. People infuse into words all sorts of things. G. Cooligan, people whose generations were literally capital, they get special requests. That's cutting to the meat of the bone right there. That's literally cutting to the meat of the bone. If you're going to have a society in which you honestly say, look, 13% of the society was held as cattle. They were a property. We pretended as if they weren't people. We pretended that that was okay because we needed them to build our country. After they were free, we gave them nothing and we sent them on their way. And the entire time saying, those Negroes should be further along by now. Now, any honest conversation has to deal with the poverty that that particular act entailed, the damage, the pain, the destruction that that particular act entailed. And not just on blacks, also on whites. Because then, again, creating this schism with regards to race, you completely forgot about class. You guys were living in squalor. Yes, we were living in bad straits, but you guys were also, Great Depression, living in squalor. Why do you think you were living in squalor? This country was making massive amounts of wealth. Why do you think you were living in squalor? Do you think that was the issue of race? Or do you think that was the issue of class? And I'm making a point to you that even right now, at this moment, the issue is not race. The issue is class. The Democratic Party and Republican Party like to throw race around and identity around each and every moment that they can do so. They do that for a very specific reason. The moment that you get off this idea of race, you go to class. You go to class. Why is my living standards the way it is? Why are our infrastructures falling down? Why don't we have these high-speed rails and all these other things they have in other countries? Why does it cost so much for us to get a flight or bus? Why are these things so expensive? And why are this shining city on a hill crumbling? That's when you start asking questions about class. Why do those people have so much and everybody else have so little? How do you get a society where so many people are out of work, and yet this society has massive and massive amounts of wealth? How do you get a society where the people, for the most part, were exploited, and when their usefulness was finished because they had a robot or they could ship the job overseas, they were expelled? Those are the questions. Those are questions. Now, if you're going to hit on personally, I had a conversation with a guy at People, was it People Summit? Yeah, the People Summit. And he was talking to me about reparations. It's a white guy, extraordinarily hippie white guy. And he says, yeah, we need to go for reparations. And he says, I was a guy that all the black guys used to have hold my pot when the cop stopped us because the cop would not check me over. Like, he was that guy. The guy was, he was awesome. He was absolutely awesome. And I'm sitting there, and he's like, we need to have reparations. And I'm like, that would never happen. It would never happen. Whites don't regard their history honestly. I'm sorry. You can try to get me to disbelieve that, but in order to get me to disbelieve that, you have to regard Iraq honestly. You have to regard the slave trade honestly. You have to regard the fact that we murdered all those Native Americans honestly. The fact that when you have Thanksgiving, it wasn't a kind time. That Thanksgiving was done on the bones of Native Americans, the other part of my family. I was making a point to him that if you go with a policy that goes towards everybody and just kind of understand that for the most part, anything that you do for one, you try to do for all, you have a better chance of getting those policies passed. There's no way. I cannot see any level of the reparations thing just sound out there to me. I think it's derogatory, even if it's true that all humans are racist. I don't think so. I still a negative trait. This was Grandma Christine 42. No, humans aren't born racist. That's trained. That's a societal thing. If Jack Fresco, he used to say, if you take a German kid or take a Jewish kid and you put him in Nazi Germany, that kid will grow up to hate Jews. Like it's the individual, it's the society that the individual, that particular person is in. Those certain things, there's certain cues that person grow up in, understand it in his head, based upon the societal framework that he's in. Some things are learned overtly, some things are learned subconsciously. That's the society. That's the society. I don't believe that's individual. Yeah, I agree with Chuck E. Cheese on this one. You have a conversation, and immediately you're racist. That's a fast way to shut down a conversation. That's a really fast way to shut down a conversation. Now, granted, it depends on what it is. If you call me an N-word, yes, you're probably being racist. If we're having a conversation, you're talking about the border, maybe not. Some of this stuff is context, and some of this stuff is your latitude of being able to deal with the conversation that the other person have. I have to be honest. I'm more in the camp of just have the conversation. Have to talk. Nothing gets done until you can have an open, honest conversation. And I'm not saying it's necessarily the easiest thing in the world. And there are going to be times I'm not going to want to hear it, if I'm being honest. I don't like being so quick to label something racist. I hate it. I hate it with a passion. I don't like delving into the race thing in some respects, because ultimately I think the issue is class. I'll delve into it if I think it's something clear cut or straightforward. But oftentimes I think these things are so murky. Oh, thank you, Kelly Lane. The Japanese might have gotten reparations. It's not that I'm against it. I just don't think it would happen. I don't even know how the conversation will come up. I mean, that's the left of the left right there. Like you've hit the left end of left in this country, like in regards to what they consider the base left or the alt left, and have gone further. That's what that is. Like, that's where I think reparations is. I got to be honest though. I could be wrong, but I think you have a better chance of saying we're going to do things that represents the entire society. Honestly, I think you get further doing it that way. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And like I said, it's not that I'm against it. If it was a policy initiative and if it was a real debate, yes, I would probably fall on the side of it. I've seen the level of poverty that African Americans were in regards to the numbers. It is It's amazing. The amount of wealth that was wiped out ever since the crash was amazing. It's hard. Like when you look at the numbers, it is mind blowing to see that much wealth wiped out. And it wasn't that much wealth there to begin with. It wasn't that much wealth there to begin with. That's true, Anastasia. I interpersonal and systemic. Yeah. Yeah. Systemic, I agree with. I don't know the difference between systemic and organizational, but systemic, yes. Yeah, this is a good point. When people say they're colorblind, they pretend that the interpersonal racism is the only kind. That's what Claudia brought up in the cold shoulder when she's in a black hood. Uncle Joe, he's one of my commenters, my subscribers. He's one of my militant subscribers. he's militant subscriber. He says, it's racism. That's an interesting point. I don't know if I fully agree, but I understand where he's coming from. Like if you take the perspective that this doesn't exist, when this thing does exist, there are only 4 lights. No, dude, there are 5 lights. There are only 4 lights. No, dude, there are 5 lights. If you're telling me that the 5th light doesn't exist, and I'm telling you, look, I'm experiencing something based on this last light. Yes, to some degree, you're allowing something to take place. You're allowing something to take place. Uncle Joe can be a troll. I agree with you, Garden. He can't be a troll. He throws elbows, man. I love the guy to death sometimes. Other times I'm like, oh man, I want to strangle him. I saw I gotta be honest, I love the guy to death though. I love the guy to death. It was one of my videos that he hated. And he's like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, or something to that effect. And he's like just trashing me. And I'm like, dude, you wrote like 10 comments. It's like, what the hell? You can write all that in 1 comment? And he's like, dude, I just respect you. And this video was horrible. I can't just believe you're taking this position. Yes, I'm going to take positions that you disagree with. Yes, that's going to take place. Yeah, he was trolling pretty hard. He was. That's fair. Gabrielle Tinkoff. I'll ask her. I'll see if she comes on. I don't think I'm having to go at her. Maybe I am. Maybe it seems that way. Okay, maybe it seems that way. I don't feel like I'm having to go at her. Me having to go at somebody, I tend to be a little bit rougher. It depends on who it is and what their atrocity. In this particular case, I'm more so joking her because I think she might have just had a bad day. But it allows me to talk about a higher issue, the race thing. And I am going to ask Noah. Yeah, I am going to ask Noah. I have to be honest, I am curious about Claudia on this one. Because am I right? Like, yes, I know I'm saying I'm curious about her because I want to know if I'm right. If I'm right, though, she's looking at this from a perspective above it all. I'm taking a God's perspective. We should be beyond this point right now. That's the way I take her perspective. I'm curious if I'm right on this. Yeah, she has a cabin called Cabin Talk. I think I spoke to her for a little bit. I was trying to get to Debbie. I was stalking Debbie. That sounds so bad. Look, I like Debbie. Even when I disagree with Debbie, I like Debbie. There's an honesty about it. Like it's a, how can I say it? Men get angry in a particular way. It's fire and thunder, and they're thrashing about, and they're these monstrous creatures of sorts. Women get angry in this way it's fiery, and in her case, just brutally honest. Even when I disagree with her, I think she's coming from a place of earnestness. So it's just this ball of energy that's just balls out. I'm pissed and angry at this thing that's going on right now. I want to murder something. And you watch her, you're like, Fair enough. I get where you're coming from. Fair enough. I understand where you're coming from. And the level of intensity of how we're getting pissed off is a level of angst that's going on in her. It's almost like the reaction itself is context to what the person is feeling in a way that you can't necessarily understand in any other way. If you read it on a book, it wouldn't be the same thing. You're seeing it as it plays out. You're seeing the level of intensity that she's putting into something that she's doing. It gets across, this is the degree to which this is a problem or this is an issue, and this is how intensely I feel about it. I like it. I like it. Even when I disagree. Even when I disagree. There's been stuff where I was like, oh man, that's so impractical. Or there's been stuff where I've thought to myself, I would love to have a conversation on that because I think that position is a little shaky. I think that position is a little shaky. But in most times it's, yeah, I agree. I agree. And even in those times, I'm like, I think that's position is shaky. I think it's shaky only because of my own context. That's the only, I recognize it. Look, here's the thing. When I read comments, when I hear people comment, well, all these things, I look at this stuff as relative perspective, if that makes sense. Like, so say you have 100 people being honest. They're being very honest. They're being earnest. There's no bias. They're not being bribed to do something. They're not being paid to do something. None of that stuff. They witness an event. Each person, based upon the things that make that person up, give you their perspective of events. One caveat, they're being honest. You're still going to get different events. You're still going to get different perspectives. Those people are still going to look at it differently. Doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. Sometimes they may be wrong. Their perspective may not necessarily be enough to get them over the hump in regards to being right or wrong. But oftentimes, it's levels of gray. It's subjective. From my perspective, based upon what I want to accomplish in the world, based upon the way I weigh these events in a particular world, this is the perspective I come up with. My perspective is relative to yours, and that perspective attacks yours. It doesn't like yours. It disagrees with your particular way of events. Now, you can have those honest conversations. Some of those things boil down to philosophical or ideological debates, which doesn't really get you anywhere. The things that you can fight over are the real world nuts and bolts of it. You can fight over the interpretation, but again, that doesn't necessarily get you anywhere per se. But if we're agreeing on certain nuts and bolts, then maybe we can get somewhere. So I look at it from that perspective. There's some perspectives I look at and say, those people are fucking nuts. There are other perspectives where I say, okay, that guy has a point. Or yes, that's attacking my perspective. And yes, that point is certainly valid because my point is a little weak on this point. Somebody told me, it was something that I said, and the guy, oh, I know what he said. He said, so if I didn't go to the people's conference, I can't criticize you for it. And I was like, you're right. That was a shaky point. That was a shaky point because that undermined some of the arguments I've made in my other videos. Who is this lady? He talks about everything and anything for an hour. Is that wrong? What's wrong with that? Grandma Christine, I started very specific topic about race, and it just kind of metastasized into whatever anybody wanted to talk about. Yeah, that's right. Chuck E. Cheese, I agree. She doesn't start it. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm going to try to get Claudia onto my channel. I'll see if she comes on. As if she comes on. It should be interesting. And keep in mind, I wasn't having to go at her. Like I don't want this perception to get out that I was dumping on Claudia. That wasn't it at all. It was just kind of, I saw the conversation. When I saw it, I was like, well, that's interesting. And then I realized how people were having feelings about it. Yeah, I watched a few of Anoa's videos. I like her. Fritz Carl. Where's Fritz Carl? Yeah, they went to the meeting together. Fritz, what was her racist video? Bring it. I want to hear about this one. Debbie made a racist video. What was the racist video, Fritz? Sell hats on Patreon. Somebody you said been talking about this one girl for an hour. She made hats and chessboards. I would totally do chessboards. I would totally sell hats and chessboards. I got to be honest. I want to do with the channel. Whoa, what just took place? Yeah, there's a few things I want to do with the channel. I do want to get to the point where this channel grows, whether it's studio and everything else, tech person, and do this full time. I fucking love doing this. And to be able to report from locations and everything else. Not to mention, it would bring down this issue between my wife and I. We have this, we bump heads on this thing of, it's like videos of YouTube being the other woman. I enjoy doing videos. So for me, I can say I do this, anytime. And I enjoy talking about this stuff. And most of the people you run into, no interest. No interest. You're talking about stuff that affects their wallet, affects their government, little to no interest. So you come on here, there's interest. Let me see. You said she did an anti-vaccination video. Here's the thing with anti-vax. I'm somewhat fascinated by this one too. I look at the world in a level of ambiguity, meaning oftentimes I don't take positions as if I know things as being the word of God. I take positions as if this is more likely to be true or not. I've seen people vilified for the vaccination thing. And because I take positions of, I take this as being more true than not. I take vaccinations as being safe, more true than not. But do I know that as a word of God? No, I don't. I'm not gonna vilify somebody. Somebody says, I have compassion for the mom who's had their kid, and let's say it had nothing to do with the vaccination. Let's say that kid just ended up with autism or something. And it just so happened to correspond around the time that she got a shot. Yes, I have compassion for that mom who says, wait a minute, these things may be related. And guess what? The mom may be right. Those things may be related. I'm just saying, there's nobody to know. So I can't necessarily toss somebody under the bus for that particular belief, even though I don't necessarily have that belief. As for John will fact check, true. No, she's fine. She's fine. Oh God, no, I know. No, trust me, I know. I look at it as it's something I want to grow, and because it's something I want to grow, I tend to be single-minded. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's not the video, it would be something else. I just didn't be very single-minded. When it was chess, it was chess. I couldn't do anything else. Everything I thought of was chess. I had a chess book in my hand anytime you found me. At some point, it would switch to something else, and something else, and something else. of all the things, this will probably be one which she prefers over the others. Some of the others freaked her out. Like when I started getting to, when I was younger, I used to be heavy into spirituality and stuff like that. I used to have these really bizarre experiences. And as I've gotten older, the experiences kind of waned off. But that doesn't mean my interest necessarily waned off. And so, again, I think I've said before, I would try to investigate some of anything. So it didn't matter what it was. So if it was something like this thing was supposed to get in contact with so-and-so, yes, let's try it. Let's do it. Let's prove it. Either it's true or it's not. Let's verify it. Let's prove it. Either it's true or not. I should be able to verify those things. Aliens. Either it's true or not. I should be able to verify those things. They have these people like contact groups and all. It didn't matter what it was. I would try it. Of course, you can see that how that would freak somebody out if you were completely outside of any context of that. Now, for me, it's, I don't know if it's true or not. I want to know. I want to know. I want to know. I don't care what it is. I want to know. Now, yes, that freaks me out sometimes too. That has freaked me out sometimes too. That has put me in places where it freaked me out. That being said, of all the things that I could do videos on or do in regards to spend my time, trust me, this is the one she prefers. So I know I feel you on this one. Trust me, she's okay with it. Conspiracy theorists? Oh man. It depends on what you mean. So the word is used as a pejorative, but it really does depend on what you mean. I have to be honest. I'm not into the Alex Jones thing. And for me, it ends to the degree that I can somehow verify it. If I can't verify it, it's just an open question. Ebon. Ebon is in. Laura said yes, conspiracy theories. I'm saving up to take a laptop to get off the hours. Gabrielle Tinkoff. I've seen them talk about stuff that's not a fact. Who's they? Who's okay? I'm missing this part of the conversation. And what does it mean to be a fact? What is truth? My face is flat. What? It's a two-dimensional screen, dude. He wouldn't have been Batman. I tell you that much. Rand economics. I'll tell you that much. He wouldn't have been Batman. He would not have been Batman unless he could have found some way to come up with. Let's say started a company, massive amount of money to start a company. Well, wait a minute. I'm trying to think. Is there a situation where Bruce Wayne? Are there superheroes that are poor? That's the question. Hippie splain. Rand economics. You know what? I'm gonna give Batman the benefit of the doubt. Batman would have still been kicking ass even if he was poor. Batman would have been Batman. I mean, he would have had more difficult situations. He would have been, this playboy that would have had all this money and everything else to do it. But is it possible for Batman to be Batman without money? Is Batman a demeanor or is Batman a guy with toys? I don't know that question, man. Spider-Man wasn't that poor. I mean, in the comic books, no. In the comic books, Peter Parker wasn't necessarily rich. He was like middle class. But you're right, he did it without cash. Now, in the movies, they're doing this thing that Iron Man is helping him out. So Iron Man is his benefactor of sorts. But was Spider-Man poor or middle class? Are they getting a distinction between poor and middle class? Kirk Ultima. Exactly. Who's buying Batman the Bat Hook? Who's buying him? Shark repellent. Who's buying Batman all these things? Yes, Laura Indiana, you're a conspiracy theorist, but it's okay. We still care about you. Jim, I don't know if I can incorporate in all of my videos. I've been really thinking about doing weekly video show, like a weekly 2-hour show or something. Yeah, I've been thinking about it. My wife has been saying like, "Hey, you should do a video thing. You should do a chat. You should do a chat." Fritz Carl, of course, Debbie and Claudia are conspiracy theories. They believe in Pizzagate, Southbridge conspiracy, 9/11. All right, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's go with that. So, how can I say this? Yeah. This triggers. I'm feeling something. I don't know what that something is yet. Hold on. All right, let's talk about truth. What is truth? What is truth? Give me truth. I just want facts. God damn it. I dropped my A pen. Somebody needs to take a drink. Have a backup. What is truth? That's what we're asking, right? What is truth? If we're saying that person is a conspiracy theorist, that person is believing shit that's going beyond the narrative that we've been told. I myself, as an individual, has accepted a narrative that was told to me. And how dare you, bastard, to tell me that you're taking on a narrative that's not the narrative that I myself have accepted. I don't believe in Pizzagate. I think planes did hit on 9/11. So this is not because I agree with them per se. This is mostly in defense of belief in the first place. How do you know you're right? How do you know they're wrong? Ultimately, how you know is based upon what you've been told, what you've read, something that you yourself did not directly experience. You're taking somebody else's word for something to be true. This is not necessarily a bad thing. There's no way for you to experience each and everything in your particular reality. It's impossible. It's not. It's impossible. There's no way I can study about dinosaurs and study about computer science, meaning have to do all of it, meaning be the archaeologists who are out there doing all. There's no way. There's not enough time to do it. There's certain things that you as a human being just have to believe are true. You have to take those things as facts. So there's a certain amount of physics that you realize, okay, things fall 9.8 meters per second squared. Pi is 3.14. Fair enough. That gets me through the day. Software code, fair enough. You can get a job doing that particular thing. You know that this chair, or you hope that this chair will support your weight. You hope that when you hit the light switch, that light is going to turn on. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the chair doesn't hold your weight. You have beliefs about the world around you. The biggest, the thing that annoys me, I think the most about people is that they believe their beliefs are actual reality. Those are narratives. Those are things that you've been told that may or may not be true. That's the honest reality of the situation. They may or may not be true. Now, here's the catch. You're growing up in a country. Let's say you were in a country that was honest and just, and that for the most part, the things that went on in government are the things that you were taught government to do. You have 3 powers. Those powers are there to check on one another. The president, he rules based upon the legislation and the laws that are passed by people who are representing their districts. And representing their districts, they're doing the will of the people. And that's why we have the government of the United States that we have. And that's why that government is the best government on the planet. What happens, though, when you no longer believe the narrative that you're being told? What happens? What happens when you realize that the Gulf of Tonkin was a lie, that Vietnam killed millions of people, and the premise for it was a lie? What happens? What happens when you say there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and you go into a country and murder 1 million people? What does that do to the individual who's looking at the government and saying, wait a minute, you're lying to me? You're lying to me. What does it do to the person when the congressman, when the guy who's up there, who you're sitting in the Congress, is glad-handing you, taking a bunch of money and doing the favors for the people who are giving them the money, while at the same token telling you something that's probably a lie? Who do you believe in? Where does your trust go? And how does any idea of the world become solid at that point? What do you believe in when everything you've been told is a lie? And I'm not necessarily saying everything you've been told, but certainly you realize many of these things are narratives that are put out for a particular reason. Where do you go for truth? How do you know what's real when the things that you've been told oftentimes are lies? Where? what was it, Operation Mockingbird. The CIA wanted to know whether or not it could influence the media, so essentially paying people in media and academic circles. How do you know what's true? And is it so? How can you be so quick to throw somebody under the bus as a conspiracy theorist when they don't necessarily believe the same narratives that you yourself believe? That's my point. It's not that I believe the narratives. It's just that I recognize that these things are narratives. They may or may not be true. I have no power whatsoever to determine whether or not they're true. I err towards one side or the next, but I'm not going to call somebody a conspiracy theorist to do so. Well, right. I mean, if you're saying I believe everything that the government tells me, certainly you know you're being lied to. I'm just saying, just one premise alone. Were there weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? I will wait for the answer. The answer is no, they weren't. So when you had all of these intelligence services saying it's a slam dunk, there are weapons in that country. You need to go in that country and break that shit in half to get those weapons out of that country. Oh, right, there were no weapons. You killed 1 million people, there were no weapons. 5 or 6 years after we're out, to kind of out. Those Iraqis need to be further along than what they are. That's my point. We don't regard history honestly. How do you kill 1 million people and then turn around and say these people should be further along? How do you not give reparations to the country that you yourself have just destroyed and attacked for no reason? I These things to some degree are distractions. I mean, you can play in the minutia. Play in the minutia. You know, people don't have anything better to do. If you don't have minutia, you wouldn't have anything else in your life. But understand that your issue, the thing that you're really trying to get at, is the infrastructure itself, the model itself. You're trying to get to the model. It's like all of these distractions and everything else come up. But ultimately, until you're talking about getting at the heart of the model itself, then all of these things will stay in place the way they are. Beware, when all the cops are criminalized, that makes all the sinners saints. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Um, we're not grading on a curve. One doesn't automatically make the other awesome. Meaning, if I'm looking at that Democrat and I'm saying that guy's an asshole, it doesn't make that Republican just sparkling fresh. That guy can be an asshole too. Both things can be true. Both things can be true. Well, the Iraq War is not the 9/11 conspiracy blowing up the World Trade Center is. No, the point I'm making to you is 9/11 happened. Now, whether it was demolition or whatever else, there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. The government lied about that. I'm saying I don't think they're crazy for saying, hey, maybe there's something else going on with this 9/11 thing. This looks a little weird. And all of our foreign policy has been based on that. I don't think she's crazy for that at all. The point I'm making is, how can you say somebody is crazy when the world around you is that slippery? You've been giving narratives. Are you certain, flesh to bone, that you will bet your life on it that those narratives are true? Are you? Because you're in a better place than I am, because I can't do that. I'm just not there. I think they went into Iraq because they had a particular ideology that thought they can dick around with the rest of the globe in that sense. That's what I thought. That's what I honestly believe. Yeah, I agree. Oftentimes, when they call somebody conspiracy theorist, just trying to shut down debate. I mean, I don't want to have that conversation with you, and I'm trying to put that conversation in such a low, low place in my thoughts that I'm going to call you a conspiracy theorist. It's just, it's rhetoric. I'm fascinated by these realities. Johnny Sheldon, yes, get it out, get it out. Johnny, go home. You know, it's funny. I think what people sometimes forget is what you say says everything about you and nothing about the person you're saying it about. That's just a factual statement. I remember I had a conversation with somebody. I told him that, and he thought I was being an asshole to him. I'm like, if you believe I'm being an asshole to you by saying that what you say has everything to say about you and nothing to say about me, I can accept what you're saying or not. And ultimately, what you're saying really does only say something about you. You've taken something in, you're swishing something around, and something comes out of you. All that's you. Now, what you may be perceiving and what you may be talking about, you may be accurate. Maybe. But oftentimes, that's really just you. Scott Caswell, well, because I don't think of it this way. If Adolf Hitler, you knew the guy had killed all these Jews, all this stuff. You find out that he was living in San Francisco. And for whatever reason, you find out, you're like, holy shit, really? Yes, I'm Adolf Hitler. I smuggled my way into San Francisco. I'm very ancient at this point, but I'm trying to make a point. You accidentally step on his shoe and he called you a bad name. Do you care that the guy who's a murderer of all those Jews that started a war that killed 40-some million people call you a bad name? You have another human being. It's just a person. The guy's in a box. And in that box, the guy swishes stuff around and up comes stuff. He's a digital recorder of sorts, and input output. That individual quantity has an opinion. So what? Like, it's like, honestly, I look at it that way. You have an individual, you have a box that has inputs, outputs, and that box has an opinion. Now, do I accept that opinion be true? Do I look at that opinion from what perspective is that opinion coming from? And depending upon my perspective, I may accept what he's saying is true or not. Ultimately, what I realized, though, is that's just that box. And that's just stuff that's coming out that box. And it's aberrant behavior. It's just aberrant behavior. Either he was raised a particular way, either he came up a particular way, even he has certain biases. That's nothing to do with me. This has everything to do with him. The negativity doesn't, I have no feelings about it. Because I don't know who the people are. It's like random people have certain feelings. I have no ties to those people. It's not like my mom is feeling some kind of way about me. Okay, well, I have a connection to her. Some random stranger on YouTube that's probably racist. I don't care. Is that what his garden gnome? He wants a black man. Love the Big Lebowski channel name. A little bit. Yeah, Jim, a little bit. I've seen a few of his videos. He just comes across as a little intense for me. At least in the video that I saw. I think you sent me a video. This is Jim Dower. I think you sent me a video where he was getting thrown out of a studio or something. He was trying to go up to CrowdStrike and they were throwing the guy out. He was just being real intense on the sidewalk. Yeah, I've seen some of them. I've seen some. I've seen some. Sky Caswell, you must be very well adjusted. Depends on what it is. I'm a person. I'm a person like any other person. There's certain things you get well adjusted at, the other things you aren't. On that particular front, yeah, I don't waste my time with. I honestly don't look at it as that's just a person. That's it. It's like no better or worse. If that person has certain ideas, that person has certain ideas. That's nothing to do with me. Now, if I've said something wrong, then yeah, then I may agree or disagree with what the person is saying. If they're just exhibiting aberrant behavior, then no, I don't care. He didn't do himself any justice by hanging out with Jordan and Jason. Who are you talking about? Oh, let me write this down. All right, so I am going to see if I can get a Noah, and I am going to see if I can get Claudia. Got to be honest, I don't think I have the clout to pull either of these. If I'm being honest, like it's like, and who are you? Hey, I have a channel. I'm on YouTube. I'm Progressive Soapbox. Yeah, dude, I don't know who you are. Trump has not done it. Johnny Sheridan, you think Trump has done a pretty good job? Okay. We're going to have to disagree on that. And look, it depends on what you think bad good job means. It depends on what you think about good job means. If you think getting rid of healthcare for millions of people is going to be a good job, then you're right. If you think wasting money on a wall when immigration is pretty much at zero, I mean, back and forth across the border, then you're right. If you think he's going to cross global relations and may cause a nuclear war, then yes, you're right. If those are the objectives that you want to accomplish, then yes, Donald Trump has done an awesome job. Smokey over the line. Yeah, I bumped into her at the war conference. That's what I mean. I don't want anybody to get. I need to make this very clear. I don't want anybody to get this impression that I'm being negative towards Claudia. That's not it. I'm joking her slightly because I think she was a little bit over the top. It's like bring that down just a little bit. Just bring that down. Just you're a little too high right now. You're too high. Bring it down. I got to be honest. I think this is somewhat blown out of proportion. I just do. I just think of all the issues to deal with. This is minutia. I'm going to contact Noah because I'm curious what took place right now. Apparently I'm in this minutia, and I will contact Claudia, or at least I will try to. I think she was coming from a good place. I know I think I've said that before. I don't think this is coming from a bad place. I honestly think this is coming from a place of why do we still have this in our society? We don't need this in our society. I'm just saying their position lacks a massive amount of context. Oh, I'm not going to repeat that one, Titus. Yeah, I think she means well. Cal Kalinsky, 2020. All right, fair enough. I don't think he's going to run, but okay. Build the wall, then let's all work together. I don't know what that means. What does it mean to work all together? Yeah, Titus, I'm not going to repeat that one. I'm not going to repeat that one. What's going on, Uncle Joe? Smokey over the line. I got to be honest. I didn't realize this was a thing. I got to be honest. I didn't realize it was a thing. Like when people were telling me, somebody contacted me. He was like, yeah, man, I'm uncomfortable posting this on my channel. I'm like, why? Well, it's kind of talking about race. What do you mean? I had no clue. I saw the video and I thought, okay, she's kind of a bit on the soapbox, but okay. And then I saw somebody else. I saw Noah's thing. And I was like, okay, this is a real thing. I didn't realize they warped themselves into reality like this. It's just not that important. Either way, like it's yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. Who is to Lukman? I don't know who Lukman is. Yeah, I don't know who Lukman is. I yeah, I just don't see her. Look, if that's not her vantage point, I just don't see the vantage point. Yeah, you don't want me for 2020. I'm the last person you want. Colorblindness can be racism. I agree. When I heard Uncle Joe say that the first time, and I had to think about it, I agree. I honestly agree. Because think about it. Let's say you're in a society. African Americans get locked up 4 times more for pot, more often, in regards to just police shooting them, killing them more often. Those cops getting off. That's the society to which you exist. And as you're existing in that society, you say, it doesn't exist. That has nothing to do with race. It doesn't exist. Well, wait a minute. It seems like it has to do with race. If you're saying this 4 times, only 13% of us, why are so many of us in prison for nonviolent offenses? Why are these people being murdered in this way? There is no race problem here. You can understand as being colorblind in that context is completely ignoring a structural situation that's taking place. Being colorblind in that context is insane. You have a problem associated with race. You have to deal with the problem on the level, in that particular case. We have a problem dealing with race in this particular case. Pretending it doesn't exist perpetuates the problem. Yes, colorblindness can't be racism. I agree. Now, the catch is, but Claudia, I don't think she's, I'm sorry, these are just perspectives that are clashing. These aren't bad people. Neither person, these are just perspectives that are clashing. Claudia is taking it from a very perspective of, look, I don't see why this group exists. I feel like I'm being excluded based on my color. The other group, Noah, looks at this and says, well, wait a minute, we had a group that we wanted African Americans to come to. You decided to come to the group. We let you into this group and we told you not to videotape. And you flipped out. Like, you could see both people's perspective, right? I mean, even from Claudia's perspective of, we should be beyond this. I get that. That perspective makes sense to me. The problem I have with that perspective, though, is it pretends as if history didn't exist. That the last 100 years never took place. I am beyond this. Yes, I know you're beyond it. Not everybody else is. You're still functioning in a society that deals with those things in regards to the way identity is aggregated around. Why are you pretending? It's not real. Yeah, Donnie J. Blaze, if you got it. Oh man, I would love to. I wish I was in a state where you could do that openly. I honestly do. That would be. My wife and I were talking about going to Washington. In DC, it's illegal to smoke. Go figure. Go figure. I'm in Richmond. Goodbye, Uncle Tom. Yeah, Debbie is awesome. I appreciate that, Johnny. This is kind of my point. So, where is it? Harbridge. I think I pronounced it right. So, in the Black community, will make 13% argument but ignores the elevated rates of crime. Is that also colorblindness? No, it's. Let me ask you this. If we're making a case that we're 13%, that's a true statement. We're 13% of this country. And saying we're 13% of this country, and we're also making the case. African Americans, whites, Hispanics, all these demographics use pot at the exact same rate. Fair enough. People are people. But if you're pulling us in 4 times more, what does that say about, is that us or you? Is that us or you at that point? Meaning, if you're pulling us in for 4 times more, then yes, we're going to have higher crime rates because you're pulling us in for 4 times more. If you have situations of more advanced poverty based upon the way or the propagation through this particular country, then yes, you're probably going to have higher crime rates. That's looking at reality honestly. That's the way I would take it. Now, you may look at that and say, well, you can blame the other in that case, but blame the other without the context. This is kind of my point of saying you guys don't look at your history honestly. That's what I said. That's exactly what I said. That question. That's why I said you don't look at your history honestly. If you looked at your history honestly, you say, okay, what is the economic impact of using somebody for labor for all these years? And then by the 80s, telling them, okay, you're a person. You're actually a person. We were joking all along. You're a person. Now, go out and get your job and be like everybody else. Now, if you bitch about not being further along, then you're just race baiting. And you're just having these racial topics. Yes, we're having racial topics because history, all of history, is in the present. How we are now, our positions in this particular country, all of those things are developed from the things that took place before. That sounds stupid to say out loud, but sometimes it needs to be repeated. To pretend as if the last 100, 50, 60, 20, 30, whatever, how many years didn't exist is insane. However way you want to look at it. However way you want to look at it. Kelly Lane, I agree with you. The world should be colorblind. I agree with you. Which is why I see what's her name's perspective. I see Claudia's perspective. I like her perspective. I just disagree with it at this particular moment because her perspective doesn't take into account context of everybody else who doesn't see the world in that way. That's why I miss her at. It's like, I understand you feel this way, but are you telling me that the perspectives of the people who you were invading on didn't feel a particular way? Did those people have a perspective that's different than yours? I understand that you feel like your perspective needs to be honored. Should theirs also be honored? Should theirs also be honored? Yeah, red economics. Yeah, you can get statistics like that without racing, but it would be some monstrous results. Like I honestly believe that a lot of this stuff boils down to economics. I really do. I think if you let me ask you this: if you had a society where everybody had their needs met, meaning poverty was somewhat irrelevant because everybody had their social needs met, do you believe that that particular society will have crime in the same way that we have crime? And I'm not talking about race at this point. I'm just talking about crime in general. Do you believe that those societies, what do you think that society would be like in comparison to our own? I think it would be a drastically different society in regards to the things that took place with regards to crime. Prisons, this kind of adjunct, this bad policy in regards to dealing with excess energy that doesn't necessarily have an outlet in society itself. We don't have anything to do with these people, so we're putting these people in prison. Policemen are essentially it's like a release valve of sorts. It's a secondary thing. You're asking cops to do things that they shouldn't necessarily have to do in normal situations. But instead of dealing with jobs, instead of dealing with a society that's more fair and equitable, we're just going to put cops on the street and we're going to let cops deal with it. And we're going to put more money into cops and let cops handle that shit. Here's the problem. Cops shouldn't be handling a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff should be handled with a better economic system. In this particular case, I agree with cops when I do think that they're put in situations where they have to handle things they shouldn't have to handle. That I agree with them on. That's more of a government thing. Uncle Joe, I've heard that argument too, that economics is racist because racism is a tool to maintain capitalism. I've heard that argument. If you go with this idea that labor itself, yeah. If you go with this idea that labor itself, meaning in order to make the system work, in order to make it run, how do you make it run? It only runs on cheap labor. All right. Where are you going to get cheap labor from? If you have strong unions, you have all these things that are going to fight for workers' rights. Those workers are going to want more money. All right. You don't have slavery anymore. People want a pretty decent wage because they want a middle class lifestyle. All right. If you're a company, you're a capitalist. I need to make money and I need cheap labor. What am I going to do with that cheap labor? I know. I'm going to put in a robot. I'm going to ship this job overseas because I'm doing things because I need to accrue more profit. It just so happens that me accruing more profit gets rid of these workers. If you're looking at it from the standpoint that labor or cheap labor is necessary in order to make capitalism run, then yes, you're right. From that context, from that perspective, yeah, you're right. You're right. Jim Dower, I agree. All drugs should be legal. Jim Dower, you're right. I agree. All drugs should be legal. There should be no situation where somebody gets locked up for making a choice to do a particular drug. That's insane. That's insane. You as an individual makes a personal choice and the government comes behind you and puts you in prison for that personal choice. That's insane. For cult. Democrats' workplace is right. Yeah, and don't misunderstand me. I don't want to be completely misunderstood. Most of these things need to have a certain amount of degrees to them. So if I'm saying color blindness, I'm not saying color blindness. I'm saying color blindness only in the context of looking at something that's actually racist or that is actually adversely affecting a particular demographic and saying there's nothing here. But interacting with people from a level of color blindness, yes, I think that's fair. I think you should. This is kind of my point. This is why it's maddening to me that these two people are getting into arguments over this. Yes, I understand Claudia's perspective. Yes, I get where Noah is coming from. Neither one is functioning poorly. Neither one is functioning badly. Both of them are functioning from a particular context. It's just so happened that context is in clash. Both of them have their reality boxes. Fair enough. Claudia's reality box of this world should be love and light. I agree with her, but we're not there yet. I'm sorry, we're just not there yet. That's all. Smoky over the line. Um, Here's the thing. If automate everything, automate everything, automate it all. If you had a situation where so much stuff was automated that your labor was only needed until you were like 35 years old, wouldn't you prefer that life? And at the point where you reach that life, you have these things provided for you in regards to, okay, I have a basic wage in regards to I have a basic life. If I want to continue to work, that's on me. But ultimately, I still have the ability to do whatever the hell I want in this particular life. I can be me. I can be self-actualized. I can be free. Automation is your key to that. That's your way out. That's your way out. That's your way to wake up in the morning and being able to do whatever the hell you want to do that particular morning because your needs are met. Automation is the key to it. Ginger Beeler, maybe Claudia thinks by being there herself, she can get us there. Oh man, you're a better person than me. No, I don't think that. But I don't know her. So my thinking doesn't mean anything. I think from a personal standpoint, if you have that perspective, see, here's the thing. I think the better perspective, if I'm being honest, would be to not care. I just think that's a better perspective. A group of people decided to aggregate in a particular way. Let those people aggregate in the way those people want to aggregate. It's none of my business. Man, if I want to join that group because I want to see it, fair enough. They let me in the group. My feeling is I don't need to draw a line, if that makes sense. And I am drawing a line at that point. I am the one who's saying, I am investigating this. And I'm saying that something is here and I'm flagging it. That's all those things are being done by you. All those things are being done by you. You can also have the perspective of, yes, I want people to be love and light. I want people to be colorblind, but the world is not there yet. That group is not there yet. God bless them. And go on your way. That's also a very good perspective to take. That doesn't in any way get rid of your love and light. That doesn't in any way get involved in this idea of people seeing themselves as, just spirits or souls or whatever else. But it does allow people to be who they are in the context of whoever they are. If they want to have a group that's set up for blacks, for Asians, for gays, for women, whatever. If there was a women's group and I go and I say, hey, okay, you need to sit down and shut the fuck up, but you can be a part of this group. Fine. Can I videotape? No. You have a penis. You can't videotape. In fact, get the fuck out of here. Now, yes, being hyperbolic and I'm being somewhat joking in this, but isn't this somewhat the same situation? The only difference is the identity has shifted slightly. It's not crazy to have a women's group. Why is it crazy to have a black group? Or an Italian group, or an Asian group, or a Japanese group, or whatever group, whatever. I'm just making this point that this shouldn't be an issue. That's all. That it's just a little weird to be an actual issue. That's all. To get to the point where Claudia is like, I don't want to talk about it anymore, is ridiculous. She shouldn't be excuse me, she shouldn't be. Whatever took place wasn't so hyperbolic and wasn't so amazing that she should be bothered by it that much. Nor was it such to the point that Noah shouldn't be bothered by it that much. Neither person should be bothered by it that much. Both people should be able to look from the other person's perspective and say, okay, I get where she's coming from, but no, she's wrong. At the very least, I think she's wrong. And the other person says, I think she's wrong, and go on your way. Both people realizing that both people have certain points of view based upon their perspective. It's just not a big thing. That's all. So if I'm slightly joking with it, that's why I don't just consider it a big thing. Automation hasn't helped because we didn't have a democratic decision about it. That's true, Cool and John. It's not just that. Ultimately, the people who essentially own production uses that automation for their ends, meaning it's my company. I'm getting a tool, I'm firing that worker. I'm getting another tool, I'm firing that worker. Hey, I can fire all these workers so I can make all that profit. I don't have to pay any kind of wage. I don't have to pay anything in regards to sick time. I don't have to pay for the family or healthcare, none of that stuff. I get the money and I don't have to deal with the workers. Yes, that's a problem. The thing is, if you had something or some mechanism that worked at the behest of society as a whole, meaning if you had a governmental agency that would go and automate the basic systems of life, then at the very least you had something where people had their needs met, almost from an automated standpoint. That's not something that took place, meaning you need a huge amount of workers to do this. The very basic needs for the most part are met through automation. Anything else above that, the person will probably have to do something in order to get that particular thing. But I'm saying that particular system allows people to be who they want to be. At the very least, their basic needs are met. It's a different system. All right. So I am going. Oh, my wife bought my mouse. Good. All right. I'm going to end this here. I'm getting tired. And I think I've been on for like 2 hours. So I think this thing started being talking about the Claudia thing, and it morphed into something else. Guys, I do think I am going to have something that goes on maybe once a week or maybe twice a week. That's a live show. I enjoy it. It's just live shows you don't have the opportunity to fuck up like talking about. I just have this thing where I'm imagining something is going to take place. I'm just like, shit, I shouldn't have said that. Or damn it, I'm in the weeds on something that I don't want to be in the weeds on. I did some video on Wonder Woman, and I ended up talking about vaginas. And it's like, oh, man, this is not the place where I want to be. At least not talking about it in this particular way. But yeah. I might try that. And look, I'll see what Noah and Claudia say. I'm curious at this point. But I gotta be honest, man. This is, of all the big things in the world to deal with, this is not one of them. Put it in context. That's all. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe. And you can always support the work through Patreon. This thing is gonna be like 2 hours long. There is no way anybody watching this. There's no way. I would be stunned if they did. But I'll leave it at that. All right, guys. Have a good night.